what I would do if I were king for a day. I'm not, and I don't aspire to be. I would accept my Democratic friend's offer.
FEMA is shut down. The Coast Guard is shut down. TSA workers aren't being paid. And negotiations to fix it are, by Kennedy's own account, scoring a -17 out of 10. Welcome to American hearings. Senator Kennedy takes the Senate floor with a two-step plan to end the DHS shutdown and says the quiet part out loud: Democrats will never agree to fund IC, and continuing to pretend otherwise is lowering everyone's IQ.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today is Mr. John Lowry, one of my colleagues from my office. As you know, Mr. President, Democrats and Republicans in the United States Congress have a dispute over funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And it's such a serious dispute that department is shut down. Now, every now and then, Mr. President, there is a dispute in Washington, D.C. that says something prophetic about the future of Western civilization. This is not it. This dispute is silly. Every single member of this body knows how important the Department of Homeland Security is. Most people recently think of Homeland Security as border security and ICE, interior security of our immigration laws. But Homeland Security is responsible for so much more. FEMA is part of Homeland Security. It's shut down. The Coast Guard is part of our Department of Homeland Security. It's shut down. The CISA, dealing with cybersecurity, is part of the Department of Homeland Security. It's shut down. The TSA is part of Homeland Security. They're working without pay. And not all of our colleagues in the TSA are working. This is the result. And it's going to get worse. Now, for reasons that I don't, well, let me put this a different way. Some would argue, and the party line is, that we're making progress in terms of resolving this dispute. That's not true. I mean, I know that's the party line and conventional wisdom, and every now and then you'll see a reporter report that. But it's not true. For reasons I don't completely understand, for a while my Democratic friends said we're only going to negotiate with the White House. And they have been negotiating with the White House for some time, but they're nowhere near agreement. Recently, some of my Democratic colleagues have met with two of my Republican colleagues and Mr. Tom Homan. Happened yesterday, to see if we could make progress. Again, the conventional wisdom, the party line that we're supposed to tell everybody is that we're making progress. But I've spoken directly with the people who were at that meeting yesterday, here among just senators and Mr. Homan. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would describe it as they described it to me, about a -17. We made no progress. And I regret that, but I understand it. let me see if I can state. I say this, I don't say this disrespectfully. I try to, what I'm about to say, I want people to know I'm serene in saying this, and I don't mean to offend anyone. But we all know what's going on. Our Democratic friends will agree to open up TSA, thank you, to open up FEMA, to open up the Coast Guard, to open up the CISA, thank you, thank you, thank you. But they haven't agreed, despite concessions on our side, to open up ICE. And they're not going to. It is not going to happen in your or my natural lifetime. And if you've been following this debate and you understand the politics, you don't need to be able to explain the theory of special relativity to know what's going on. It's not complicated. Parties have wings, factions within their party. I'm a Republican, we have factions. Democrats also have factions. And a specific faction of the Democratic Party right now is in control. That's just a fact. You could call it the progressive wing. Some call it that. The more cynical call it the loon wing of the Democratic Party. I, on occasion, have referred to it as the Karen wing of the Democratic Party. The Karen wing wants to defund ICE, and they will accept nothing less. Now, this is the same wing of their party that also wanted to defund the police. How'd that work out for us? This is the same wing of their party that has a very novel way to reduce the crime rate in America. Just don't prosecute anyone. Then our crime rate goes to zero. Now, I don't mean to paint with too broad a brush, Mr. President. Not all of my Democratic friends agree with the Karen wing of their party. They don't. Just not all Republicans are part of the factions in my party. But it is a fact that the Karen wing of the Democratic Party is in ascendancy, and it is firmly in control. And any Democrat, we all know this, that agrees to any kind of compromise with respect to ICE is going to be punished to the rest of their natural lives. They can't do it, and they're not going to. Now, we can keep having meetings and discussing it. We've been doing it for weeks. Most of these meetings could easily be accomplished with an email. And I've been part of the discussions in our conference. I'm convinced that listening to the same thing over and over and over again is lowering my IQ. When we know that nothing is going to resolve this, because my Democratic friends politically can't agree to a compromise about ICE. So here's what I think we ought to do. I think that we should accept the Democrats' offer to open up TSA and to open up FEMA and to open up Coast Guard and to open up and fund CISA. And let's get that done. Let's shorten these lines. And then the day after we do that, Republicans need to file a reconciliation bill the same way we passed the One Big Beautiful bill. And on our own, we need to come up with a budget for ICE. It's the only way to solve this problem. Now, as you know this, Mr. President, under the Budget Control Act, we can pass legislation, there are parameters on us, that only requires 51 votes. That's how we passed the One Big Beautiful bill. Under the rules, we're allowed to do 2 more reconciliations. So we have 2 bullets left. For reasons that I don't completely understand, well, strike that. I think I do understand. I just don't agree with them. Some on my side are reluctant to do any more reconciliations. And they're hard. Okay, I know, they're hard. They're hard for my Democratic friends when they do it. They're hard for us when we do it. You know, that's what we were sent here for, is to do hard things. I mean, med school is hard, but we still have a lot of great doctors. We ought to do our job. That's the only way I can see that we're going to be able to break the stalemate. So let me say it again, what I would do if I were king for a day. I'm not, and I don't aspire to be. I would accept my Democratic friends' offer to immediately open up the TSA, FEMA, Coast Guard, CISA, every part of the Department of Homeland Security except ICE. I would stop looking reality in the eye and denying it, and accept the fact that my Democratic colleagues, because of their internal politics, will never be able to reach an agreement with respect to ICE. It is not gonna happen. In the meantime, these lines get longer. So once we confect that agreement with our Democratic colleagues, the very next day, we start a resolution in the Budget Committee, and we do a second reconciliation bill, and we fund ICE and border security, what's still shut down, and Homeland Security like we want to. I would welcome my Democrats to work with us on a bill, but they're not. We only need 51 votes to do it. And then government, all of government, is back open. Now, there are other things that we could do in that reconciliation bill, and I've talked about, I'm not going to repeat what I said yesterday. My side feels very strongly about the SAVE Act. We believe that only Americans, citizens of our country, should be able to vote. And we believe that you shouldn't be able to vote unless you can prove you are who you say you are. And my Democratic colleagues, trying to be as serene and objective as I can, come back and say, yeah, but there's another side of this argument. It's already against the law to not be a citizen and try to register. And I understand that. And they come back and make the point that, well, you cannot show me where we've had a lot of instances of illegal immigrants actually voting. And I understand that. Those are fair points. But that's not what we're fighting about. What we're fighting about is that President Biden, for whatever reason, admitted between I don't know how many, 8 million, 12 million, 15 million, 20 million people illegally in our country, into our country. He did. We all watched him do it. And we don't even know where these people are. We don't. Some of them were children. We don't know where all the children are. We don't. And I'm not saying all of those folks were bad people. I'm not saying that. A lot of them were economic migrants. They just want a better life, and so they want to come to America. They chose not to do it through legal immigration. If they would do it legally, we could consider admitting them. We admit 1 million people a year of our world's neighbors to become American citizens. But they came illegally because, frankly, President Biden said do it. And they did it. Not everybody was Cinderella who came in. Some people who came in were criminals. They were murderers. They were rapists. They were drug dealers. They were sex traffickers. We all know that. That's what our ICE right now is trying to do, is trying to find these people who shouldn't be in any country, their own, ours, anywhere. They'll be in jail and find them. But here's my point. As a result, and we all saw it happen, and the American people saw it happen. They get it. American people may not read Aristotle every day. They're too busy earning a living. But they get it. And a whole bunch of Americans believe, whether it's true or not, and I'm not saying it is true. I'm not saying it isn't true, because I think some of my Democratic colleagues believe this. But many Americans, millions of Americans, have concluded that this was all by design. That these 8, 10, 15, 20 million people who were admitted illegally into America is a way to try to bolster the Democratic Party. So these folks will be beholden to the Democratic Party and try to vote, and or once they become citizens, if they become citizens, vote for Democrats. Now again, I'm not, some of the commentators who go catatonic and foam at the mouth when I talk about this, but we all know it's true, call this the replacement theory. And I'm not saying all Democrats believe that. And I'm not here to say it's true or not. Though I think there are some of my Democratic friends who believe that. That's not the point. The point is the American people believe it. And so they no longer trust our electoral system. And our elections are not worth a damn if people don't accept the result. And if they don't trust the system, they're not going to accept the result. And that's why we're moving the SAVE bill, the SAVE Act. I support it unconditionally. We're going to have difficulty passing it. That much is clear. So either as part of the reconciliation bill, for us to get ICE back up and running, I would include the SAVE Act as part of that reconciliation bill as well. We wouldn't need 60 votes. We wouldn't need 55 votes. We'd only need 51 votes. We passed one big, beautiful bill with 50 votes and the vice president breaking the tie. And I feel like I'm repeating some of what I said yesterday. Some of my colleagues are going to say, Kennedy, you know, you need to back away from the crank. You can't do this, the reconciliation. And I say you can't do the SAVE Act through reconciliation. And I tell them I've been here 10 years. And we can do what the parliamentarian says we can do. And I have seen measures get approved under the Budget Control Act, we call it a bird bath, get approved that I thought didn't have a chance. And I've seen others not get approved that were slam dunks. As I said, I'm in the minority on this, even among my Republican colleagues. I don't mean this to sound bad, but sometimes the majority just means all the fools are on the same side. I'm not calling my colleagues fools, but I am saying this is worth a try. I'd go get a really smart lawyer and ask them to help us craft a SAVE Act that can survive a bird bath. And I would do those two things in reconciliation, or at least open up ICE through reconciliation. We won't need to do it with Democratic support. I've been thinking about this for a while. Senator Cruz talked about this eloquently, much more eloquently than I can at our luncheon yesterday. I hope Ted will come down and share with you at some point his thoughts on it. He's one of the, he and I see Senator Cornyn here. They're two pretty smart lawyers that could help us craft something. And I just wanted to come spend a few minutes offering my point of view on that, Mr. President. And I thank you for hearing me out and being serene and patient and all that other good stuff. With that, I yield the floor.
Welcome back to American Hearings. Kennedy opens this address with unusual candor about the state of negotiations. Not the party line, progress is being made. What he was actually told by people in the room, -17 on a scale of 1 to 10. He names that number, owns it as his assessment, and moves forward. The political diagnosis that follows is familiar in its framing but specific in its application. Kennedy doesn't paint all Democrats with the same brush, he never does. But he identifies a specific faction as currently in ascendancy, argues that any Democrat willing to compromise on ICE faces severe internal political consequences, and concludes that a bipartisan resolution on that specific issue is not coming, ever. Once that conclusion is accepted, and Kennedy argues it should be, the strategic path changes. Stop trying to negotiate the impossible. Accept the Democratic offer on every other part of DHS, TSA, FEMA, Coast Guard, CISA. Get those reopened immediately. Shorten the lines. Stop the bleeding. Then, the very next day, file a reconciliation bill. Fund ICE independently, without needing a single Democratic vote, the same way the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed. Kennedy is direct about being in the minority even within his own conference on this approach. He quotes a principle without apology: sometimes a majority just means all the fools are on the same side. The SAVE Act addition, requiring proof of citizenship to vote, gets woven into the reconciliation proposal as well. Kennedy connects it directly to the public trust crisis created by the prior administration's immigration decisions. Whether or not the concern about non-citizen voting is statistically large, he argues, millions of Americans believe the system was manipulated. And elections aren't worth anything if people don't trust their results. The address ends not with a demand but with a recommendation: find a smart lawyer, craft something that can survive the budget reconciliation process, and get it done. Subscribe to American Hearings.